Anyway. Alright, so I'm going to start with a couple poems from a series I've been working on in a workshop that are based off of Thorn Merchant poems by Yusuf Komunyakaa. And these poems are called The Trash Composer. So I'm going to start with the first one. It is morning, and his eyes ponder the names of colors on cracked crayons. In the paper pile, he lays way down, thinner than a 9-cent dime. His hand catches the slick of a magazine, pulls the page up, hoping for sheet music. Instead, he reads about the pieces that were cut from the Shroud of Turin, each one lost in a chemical swirl, the gaping mouth of a vial. His hands hold the crumpled corner of the page, his fingers dotted long ago with paper cuts from a love letter. His garbage throne shifts under his weight. A bone inside a bone is breaking. There are small memories at work underneath a microscope. He knows the more a thing is understood, the more it is destroyed. It only takes a quorum of matter to keep eternity alive. The thought shampoos on his brain. In the distance, a trumpet blares asthmatically, his blood crooning around each failed note. Above the lip of the dumpster, people are talking, the kind who speak only from the neck, the kind who don't know a song from an echo. But the words inside him are not these. The chip on his shoulder is made of sawdust. Their song is not his song, which is to say, every rib in his body is a tuning fork waiting to be struck. This next one is called The Trash Composer's Assistant. None other than the Bishop of Blues, aka Hank the Hot Stepper, godfather of brass and barbells, flexing that sharkskin double-breasted suit with the matching trumpet case. It's no wonder how he rolls into town on white-wall tires with more pep than 76 trombones in the morning sun. Manhole covers rattle like snake tails and belch sewer steam on his black suede shoes. With nothing more than a shrug and a swagger step, he brings out the sinners in a septic city, shaking tempest hard, and for a time, the people are all agog with bravado like a 10-foot tuba. When he enters the nightclub, he casts a wily wink toward Karma, orders an old-fashioned and gulps real smooth. Never mind her spell has already molted in his heart, a little bit of death sinking in like a splinter, where the Savella family's mend high and tight on his neck where his close shave stops. Could have seen it coming. He's at the coat check with whistling Rhapsody in Blue, and no one says a word while the mob moves outside like a rugby scrum, backlit in scarlet. The hot stepper's teeth filling the cold cracks in cobblestone. A pale horse clops the street while inside a high note hits the air, ringing like a syllable for revenge. Alright, this poem is called My Uncle Used to Be a Firefighter. Just like my grandfather before him, part of the same thread, except my uncle was always in the hospital. Dad told me he couldn't do stuff that other people could. He has a much harder time with things now. I never met him. For me, he existed only on the lips of my father or in his heavy eyes after he would visit him. So I would picture my uncle with no arms or as a ghost. And sometimes I imagined that he was the bedpost spider scurrying into the pillow flaps. When I flipped them to the cool side, cobwebs came undone. After thunderstorms, I would greet every puddle with the thick of my boot and think the ripples looked a lot like his smile, dimpled with the reflections of clouds squeezed of rain and shade. Staring into the puddle, I didn't know if my foot or his laugh made the whole sky shake. The day I wrote him a letter, my words came out sizzling, as if I were writing with matches, fighting the hot flicker of my thoughts, the constant friction of the fire I couldn't keep from burning. It was the day Dad came back from the hospital holding a small black jar, the day my hands became torches, looking at the page. Once the letter had been scorched, he leaned in, as slow as spider silk drifting, said, "Dead men have no shadows." My last lesson in love came in tears, when Dad held a marble jar below the lip of the desk, adding the ashes of the page in with a gentle slide, like a boy clutching his favorite action figure after it breaks. This one's called Letter to Samuel. Dear Mrs. K, suppose I told you that as a boy, I wanted to be white so bad, I smashed my mom's coffee cup to pieces one morning before school, pressed my arm into the brown of the puddle, and dragged it through hot porcelain, trying to rip away the black from my skin just so I could be like the other kids in class. Under the kitchen light, my wide-eyed little sister grew pale. I was screaming, and my mother tried not to sob as she pulled me up from the mess. When she asked why, I could only keep screaming that I didn't want to be black anymore. I remember the sound in her voice, the splat of a rock dropped into silt, the quick hush of a wave licking up more silt to bury the rock. I would have cared about her tears if I weren't blind with my own. Suppose I told you, Mrs. K, that I wanted to be invisible in the sunglass hut while the clerk watched me move between the display cases. I remember how the fear earthquaked my 13-year-old bones, and when she whispered into the phone, "I'm not a babysitter," I felt the Morse code in her voice grow and grow into the footsteps of the security guard. "Son, you're going to have to find a new store." Shoppers watched him escort me outside, where I asked, "Where should I go now?" "Anywhere but here." You should know, Mrs. K, that I saved the clerk's life after I told my dad what happened and begged him not to go back. I know it must have been hard for you the morning you told your daughter she couldn't be with me anymore. Hard to say, him or us. I know the things you wanted me to be because I wanted them long before you did. I know how pain sounds in a mother's voice. But you should know, Mrs. K, that rock felt lodged in the throat, that seismic sink of sand into lungs is the way I have felt every day of my life. And this last poem is called Supernova, and it's actually after King Grabowski. I want to tell you about the little girl I've been babysitting. She has coarse black hair, mini braids with multicolored plastic beads at the ends. She has red-brown skin, like me. She has a smile like a new galaxy being born, and she asks tough questions. How do clouds stay in the sky? How much rain does it take to make a rainbow? I've learned to come up with some crazy theories. Half an ocean tossed into the sky. A million little birds towing little strings tied to the cloud's silver linings. To be honest, I'm afraid of the questions she isn't asking. Why does Mommy work so late? Why won't Daddy come and watch me? Why won't Daddy ever come and watch me? She reminds me how close we all are to explosion. I want to tell you that things always break apart from the center. On the other side of the universe, bombs go off that we never know about for millennia. Whole nations and people have flourished and floundered before humans notice their fading light. I've been told in 50,000 years the Little Dipper will resemble more of a bent, crushed Coke can, the hind leg of Ursa Minor collapsing into its gut. I'm afraid we will become like the stars of Draco, our serpentine curve twisted into shipwreck. To prevent this, I'd travel warp speed to put my mouth on your mouth, where the meaning-making happens, tie strings to our galaxies and drag them together across the ocean of space. I want to take the boiling stone from your core, name it dignity, mold it while hot, and cool it into something the world will recognize. But why should my hands reshape anything inside of you? I want to know that America still has room for black love, for black families. I want light years before the next supernova. I've been told that since the time of Christ, the three kings of Orion's belt have pointed to the brightest star. Sometimes I wonder how even they stay in the sky. Last night, I dreamt Emmett Till visited Ferguson, Missouri. Nobody recognized him. Not until he lay down next to Michael Brown's body. Not until he kissed him.